Welcome back to my video series, Real E-Commerce with Laravel. In this episode, we're going to create some model factories and seeders to populate our database with test data. So last time we laid the groundwork by setting up our migrations, models, and relationships. So the next step is to check all of those are working correctly. Now we could go into PHP Artisan Tinker here, and we could start playing around creating, say, categories. We could say category create. We need a name, a slug. You get the idea. But that's going to take us ages. There's no point sitting around typing everything out manually. It's just a waste of time. So let's come out of here. And the better way to do this is by using seeders and factories. So in our database directory, we have a seeders and a database seeder class. And as you can see, let's just uncomment this here. Laravel comes with a user factory out of the box. So in our factories directory, we have our user factory. And you'll see in this definition here, all it's doing is defining for each of the fields in our database some test data to use to generate a user. And this is using a library called Faker, which can generate all kinds of different types of test data, names, email addresses, cities, towns, you name it, it can generate test data for it. So in this case, you can see we're using Faker to get a name and an email address in order to create a test user. And in our seeder, you can see we are asking for 10 users to be created. So let's give this a try. If we say PHP Artisan DB seed, it seeded our database successfully. So then if we go into Tinker and we say get all users, here you can see all of the users it just created. And here you go, the name and email address of each one has come from that Faker library. Super easy, right? So let's have a look at doing this for our tables. And let's start with the categories table. So we can use Artisan to make a factory and call it category factory. And now in our definition, we can set the fields that we need. And for reference, let's open our migration for the categories table, and we can see we need a name and a slug. So let's start off by saying a name, and using Faker, let's get a random word. Our categories are probably going to either be 1 or 2 words in reality anyway, so let's say this Faker word. And then for the slug, we can use the string helper to create a slug of a word. We just need to import this into our class to use it. Now this will work. However, one little tweak, I would say instead of calling Faker word each time, let's define a name variable and use that. So then our slug will be of the same word generated for the category name. So then in our database seeder, we can say generate, say, 5 categories. Now one more thing to check is in our model, it needs to have this definition here. Now because we generated these through Artisan, it's included that in the model template for us, so we don't have to do that right now. But something to watch out for if you're either upgrading from Laravel 7 or below, or you're manually creating your models, you will need to include this trait. So now we could run our database seeder again, and then go into Tinker, and let's say get all of the categories for me. And there we are. Each category has a name and a slug, which is the same word, And immediately one tweak I can think of is maybe this should be in sentence case. So that's easy enough for us to fix. We can say uppercase words, which are PHP function, on the first name definition. Great. Let's move on to the products. And let's say PHP artisan make factory product factory. Open that file up and let's again have a look at our migrations for our products. So again, we have a name and a slug. So let's take the category definition as a starting point. Import the string helper. So with product names, they're probably going to be more than one word. We could say, instead of word, we could call the words function. And then we could say all product names will have 5 words. Now, by default, that will actually return an array. So the second parameter that we can give is a Boolean, and if we pass true, it will return that as text for us. So I think for now that's fine. That'll generate a product name for us and create us the slug. We also have a description. So let's create that here. Description, and we can use Faker to generate a paragraph for us. Now the only thing left to define here is the relationship with our category. Now in previous versions of Laravel, you would define in your factory the link to the category table and you would pass in the category class. Now in Laravel 8 things have changed a little bit, and what you can actually do is just here when we're generating categories, we can say that the category has the product factory and say 10. So now when our seeder is running, it will generate 5 categories and each one of those will have 10 products. So again, let's give this a test. And what we can actually do is, rather than running the seeder again and adding even more rows to our database, we might as well just completely refresh the migrations, and you can pass in a seed flag. So there, it's completely refreshed our database and seeded for us at the same time. So let's go into PHP Artisan Tinker, get all of the categories again. There's all of our categories. And let's say with products, so fetches the products relationship. In fact, what might be easier to see is just get the first one. So here we can see, if we scroll up, with products first, it's got the first category, and there's the products relationship, which lists all of the products inside the category, which is exactly what we wanted. So that relationship is working as expected, which is great. So next, let's move on to SKUs. You'll see we have this SKUs relationship in our product model. And if you remember, the product SKU is the link between the products, the size, the color, and an image. That is essentially a unique item that somebody can buy from our store. So let's generate a factory for our product SKUs, and then open that here. And again, let's have a look at our migration as reference. So here we can see that the SKU itself is a string. So let's say SKU. So at this stage, let's just come up with a simple format for the SKU, and we'll say that all SKUs are 8 digits long. So we'll use the string helper again and generate an 8-character random string. And let's also say that it will be uppercase. Next, we have a stock level. So simply here we can say PHP, give me a random number, and let's say it's between 0 and 100. And finally a price. And for this we can use faker again. And we can say random float. And we want 2 decimal places. Now the rest of these fields are, again, relationships. So let's leave those for now. And let's have a think about these 3 tables here. Now the sizes and colors, we could use factories to generate random sizes and random colors to use. But in reality, we actually know what these are going to be. So what would be better here is to actually create a seeder specifically for them and manually populate those tables. So let's say PHP artisan make seeder, and let's create a size seeder. And again, for reference, let's open up the migration. So the sizes are just a single field of size. And in our seeder, we can just simply say, use our size model, create size equals small, and then we can have medium, large, extra large, and 2 extra large. Don't need that one. So for now, at least, those sizes are all we'll need. So now let's do a similar thing for colors. Let's generate a color seeder. And if we look at the colors migration, we can see we have a name and a hex. So in this case, we could say the color model, create, we have name, let's say white. Oops. And hex is white. And then let's have a black t-shirt. And let's also have a red t-shirt. Those will do us for now, I think. So now if we go all the way back to our database seeder, what we can do here is we can use this call function, which will take an array of seeder classes. So we can say the color seeder class and the size seeder class. So now when we run the seeder, it will call these before running through these. So that's our colors and sizes. The other one to think about is the product image. So again, for this, let's have a factory. So we'll say make factory product image, and let's open that. So here we can see we're storing the path to an image. So we can say path, and again we can use faker for this, and we can say image URL, and we could give it a width and a height, but the default I think will be fine for now. So now we have all of these elements in place. Let's look back at generating some product SKUs for these products. Now in a similar way to the categories, we can say that our products have or has product SKU. Use the factory to create, say, 3. So let's see what happens when we run this, bearing in mind we know that it's probably not going to work at this stage. So let's reseed our database, and as expected, we have an error. Okay, the reason we're seeing this error is because it's using the product SKU name as a reference for what this relationship is called. Now, if we refer back to our product model, the relationship is actually just called SKUs, not product SKUs. So a simple fix for this is there is a second parameter here where we can name our relationship on that seeder. So let's try this again. Okay, so Faker is being a little bit crazy here and generating us quite a large price for this item. So we may need to restrict that. Let's have a look back in our product SKU. And let's see what options we have here. Right, we have a min and a max. So we want 2 decimal places. We'll say the minimum is 99p and the maximum 100. So that should give us a more reasonable range to work under. Okay, so now we're getting the error that I was anticipating previously, and that is that we haven't given a size or indeed a color when we're creating this product SKU. Now, because we've manually seeded these 2 tables, we would actually have to define these within our product SKU factory. So what we can say is the color ID, we want it to be one of the values from our database. So let's get a random row from our color model, and we want the ID. And then we could do a similar thing with the size. So size ID, let's use the size model. And just for clarity, my VS Code is automatically importing these for me at the top. So let's give this a go now. Again, we will remigrate and seed. And of course, order by random doesn't exist. That should actually be in random order. Okay, so that seems to have worked because it got to the next error. And the next error is that we're not generating a product image. So simple fix for that, just like we did previously, we can say product SKU has a product image, factory 1. We want 1 image related to the product SKU. So after a little bit of investigation, what I think this error is referring to is the fact that we defined a product ID foreign key on our product images table. And we're actually associating it with a product SKU in the opposite direction. So I don't think this field is actually required, so I'm going to remove that. Let's give this another try. So interestingly, doing it this way doesn't work. At this stage, I'm not sure whether it's because we are embedded 3 levels down on this has call. I'm going to look into that further and see exactly why that isn't working at this stage. Or if you've come across this kind of thing before, or you know exactly why this isn't working, drop me a comment down below to let me know. But in this case, what we can do is we can take the has call out of here and we can go back into our product SKU factory. And let's generate that product image relationship just here. So we can say product image ID, and just here we can call to the product factory and say create. That will give us an array of images. So we want the first one and the ID of the first one. Not the most elegant of solutions, but as I say, I'm going to look into why exactly that wasn't working in our seeder file. But as you can see, our database has regenerated successfully and our seeders have populated our database. So let's have a play around just to double check everything is as we expect. So let's get the first product. So as we can see, it's in category number 1. And if we say with our relationships category and SKUs, that is an array. So put in our square brackets. Here we can see that we've got our category. It's in this category here. And we've got our SKUs. It's generated 3 SKUs for us. And let's go a step further. See, we've got some stock levels here. We've got prices. Each one has a unique SKU. And let's pull in these relationships here. So we can say we want SKUs.color, SKUs.size, and SKUs.image. And of course, let's just double check what we called that relationship is actually product image. Here we go. So we can see, we just scroll up a little bit. Here's the category again. So here we go. So here we have the SKU. The SKU's color, it's red, large, and here's our image. And you can see that has generated each of our product SKUs. So that seems to be working correctly. We're generating 5 categories with 10 products in each, so 50 products in total, each with 3 product SKUs. That should be plenty for us to start building out our application. So I think that'll be it for this episode. This episode was supposed to come out last week, so I apologize for that. Work was a little bit crazy with a product launch that we had going on last week, so I didn't quite have time to get this video recorded last week. But to make up for it, later this week there will be the next episode, so that's 2 videos this week rather than the usual 1. Next time we're going to get into building the templates, which is a little bit more exciting. So we'll be using Tailwind to put these templates together. As always, I hope you found the video useful, and if you liked it, drop me a thumbs up down below and give me a comment to say hi, and I'll catch you on the next one.